Y'all already know I love Chicago. Even when it's cold outside, when my train late, even when the news is frustrating as hell, I always feel connected to this city. And it's that exact feeling of connection that drove us to create the CityCast Chicago Neighbors Program. Yes, it's a way to support the show and the newsletter, but it's also a way to get more out of Chicago, more out of us. When you're a neighbor, you'll get an early look at events coming up around the city. You can shout out local businesses and organizations you love, use our platform to put them on, and you can get the chance to join us for members-only experiences. When you become a CityCast Chicago neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm, you're going to get our brand new first-of-its-kind CityCast Chicago beanie. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. Today on CityCast Chicago, how close are the mayor and alders to a final budget? Will there be a new teen curfew heading into 2026? And have you heard about Rich Auntie Trivia? It's Friday, December 12th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I'm joined this morning by two of CityCast Chicago's favorite guests. We've got Block Club Chicago's Jamie Nesbitt Golden in the building. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Scooty Gang up.
And arguably CityCast's most visited guest, WTTW's Heather Sharon. Welcome back, my friend.
It is an honor and a pleasure to hold that title, which I will defend at all costs.
Seriously, not only are y'all two of our most visited guests, but I put this on my mama. When I reach out to y'all are almost always two of the most quick responding people I know. And Jamie, you've always done, it's always just like, hey, I'm in. Heather's the same thing. It's like, count me in. And it ain't no, like, y'all don't give me a long speech or nothing. It's just like one sentence. It's like, I got you, bro. I'm gonna be there. And I appreciate y'all. In the same way, I appreciate every single person who has showed up to listen to CityCast Chicago today, whether this is your first, 10th, 1,000th episode. It means the world to us. And this is the last day of our fall membership campaign. To every single person who has signed up this week, we appreciate you. We're going to put them beanies in the mail as soon as possible. And if right now you asking yourself, Kobe, what the hell are you talking about with this beanie business? Then either welcome to the class, take a seat. We've been talking about them all week. Or maybe stop hitting the damn 15-second skip button every time I start talking about $10 a month. All right? We all seated? Cool. This is going to be one of the final days you get the full spiel. So remember, when you sign up to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor, you are not only supporting the podcast and the newsletter for years to come, but we got perks for you: ad-free listening, access to neighbors-only event. We're going to send you some of our favorite things happening in and around the city every single week directly to your inbox. And like I said, the CityCast Chicago Black Beanie is my gift to you. $10 a month. If you got it like that, $100 a year. And join this exclusive group of Chicagoans. All you got to do is visit membership.citycast.fm and we'll walk you through the process. Heather, we are going to start with you. You came on the show 2 months ago when the mayor introduced the People's Budget, a $16.6 billion plan to address the growing budget gap, leverage new taxes on some corporations, and, as he put it, avoid layoffs, service cuts, or property tax hikes. 2 months later, we still don't have an approved budget, as now a group of alders have released their own alternative proposal. Catch us up here. What's in this new proposal, and how likely are either the mayor's latest version of things or this alternative city council plan? How likely are either of them to make it to the finish line over the next couple of weeks?
We are just deadlocked as a city, and it's complicated because most of the ink spilled about Chicago's budget has been about the mayor's proposal to tax large corporations, large businesses with a monthly per employee tax, sometimes called a head tax.
And that's already gone through a few versions. At first, It was...
So it started at 3% of companies, at $21 per month for firms with more than 100 employees. And then the mayor said, okay, what if we tax only firms with 200 employees, which brings it down to that 1.5% of companies. And then the third version of the plan, which is the current plan, would tax only firms with at least 500 employees, $33 per month per employee. Now, a group of sort of conservative and more moderate alder people backed by Chicago's business community say a head tax is unacceptable at any level. So they have rejected each of these proposals, and their alternative budget plan removes the head tax from the city's budget. Now, it would only generate $82 million. Now, I say only $82 million is a lot of money for any of us, but in terms of the city's $16.6 billion budget, it is a fraction, right? So they want to not only take out the head tax, but they want to do a couple of different things. They want the city not to borrow $166 million to pay firefighters retroactive pay. So our firefighters worked without a contract for more than 4 years. That means they are owed back pay for those years. So the sort of more moderate alder people don't want to borrow that because it would cost the city another $30 million or so to pay it off over the next 3 years. But also they want to pay nearly $140 million more towards the city's pensions. And whenever I write about the city's pensions, I have to slip in there that they are woefully underfunded. So this is sort of like paying more than the minimum on your credit card statement, right? So this is sort of chipping away at that mountain of debt that the city has. And that's what this budget plan would do. But there's a problem with this alternative budget plan is that it relies on a bunch of revenue that the mayor's team says isn't going to materialize. And just yesterday, we learned that they're now counting on nearly $50 million from slot machines that would be installed at O'Hare and Midway Airport.
So have not been installed, and we have no data to say how much they would actually bring in. So this is just sort of a number.
Right.
I don't want to say that they pulled out of thin air, but that they've sort of that they're coming up with. But we've seen from casino revenue, even with the temporary casino, that like the number they give us at the beginning and what the revenue they bring in, they're not the same.
Correct. So in next year's budget, the permanent casino is supposed to open in River West. The city is only counting on $31 million from both the temporary casino and the permanent casino. So this would be a significant increase in casino revenue. And the mayor's team says that's just simply not realistic. So that is going to make it hard for a majority of alder people to get on board with any plan if they're opposed to the head tax, right? They don't want to support the mayor's plan. But there are real questions about whether the alternative budget plan is really based in reality. The other complication is that the mayor has said, look, I'm going to veto any plan that raises garbage fees. Now, the way it works in Chicago is that most Chicagoans pay $9.50 a month to get their trash and recyclables hauled away. The problem is that it costs the city $37.50 per house to do that. So that's a pretty significant subsidy. Now, the alternative budget plan would hike that to $15. The mayor says that is a non-starter. So if the alder people want to sort of pass this budget that relies on that garbage fee increase, they need 34 alder people, and nobody thinks they have 34 alder people. And that is why we are deadlocked with 19 days before the city shuts down.
That is a very good breakdown, my friend. Let me start with this question. The head tax being at the center of the push and pull, have those more conservative alders, particularly like Alder Nicole Lee, who is sponsoring this alternative proposal, have they provided data for this term that they keep using, pretty candidly, job killer? Is there any data to back up that a head tax of any kind, whether it was going to raise 100 million or 82 million, whether it was going to affect, companies with over 500 employees or over 100 employees, is there any data to prove that this is a job killer, essentially?
So they look at employment data in Chicago since 2014, which was the last year that the previous head tax that was in place for 40 years was phased out. And they say the number of jobs has grown in Chicago since 2014. And that's true. And the mayor says, but that's not attributable to the head tax. Jobs grew nationwide.
Jobs were growing before before
Right.
the head tax was taken away as well.
Right. So this is one of those situations where it's, lies, damn lies, and statistics. And you can sort of find the data to sort of support whatever position you're going to take on this issue, because it is really hard to say why a single company decided to add jobs and sort of attribute that specifically to this one specific tax. And the other larger problem with this sort of budget negotiations is that neither side trusts the other side. The mayor says, here's the facts. And, a significant portion of alder people on the city council literally says, we don't believe you. And then, that group of alder people says, here are the facts. And then the mayor says, I don't believe you. That is a recipe for gridlock and long nights and me being way behind on my Christmas shopping.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've sat with you over the last few budget cycles at this point, and, I felt like we've been here before in some form or fashion. Last year, they were gridlocked over Mayor Johnson's proposal to raise property taxes to fill the budget gap. And that ultimately got whittled down and taken out. At this point, with both kind of digging in their heels, where are we compared to last year?
Last year, the city council didn't approve a budget until December 16th. Now, the earliest day I think that it's likely that the city council could approve a budget would be December 17th, so Wednesday of next week. I think that is relatively unlikely. So we're definitely looking at sort of a longer stalemate than last year.
When we look at some of the things that everyday Chicagoans are most concerned with, groceries, garbage, do you get a sense of where their frustration is with this budget process?
Oh, yeah. So a lot of what I worry about is that none of this actually is understandable to the average Chicagoan, right? When I talk to regular folk about about the budget, they want to know, are my property taxes going up? And I always have to say, well, it's complicated.
Right. It really depends, because they went up because of CPS in some ways this last time around, not the city. But most time we talked about property tax over the last few years was that battle between city council and the mayor's office. People were like, okay, they're not going up. They passed the budget with no property tax raises. But, they still went up because there are other people who can levy their property tax increase. But again, I don't know if that's always being fleshed out when we're having these back and forths.
Right.
People have had to hear the words government shutdown more times than they would like this year. And now it's starting to be floated in headlines about Chicago potentially facing its first ever. I'm going to ask a simple question, Heather. Percentage chance the government shuts down, they don't get a budget passed?
Well, what's interesting is that if you talk to the mayor, he says 0 chance. We're not going to let it happen. If you talk to the alderman behind the rival plan, they're going to say 0 chance. We're not going to let it happen. But I think that the reason why you've seen sort of an uptick in the sort of the rhetoric and sort of, the number of stories and the competing plans is that people are beginning to realize that despite everybody's belief that they don't want it to happen, it could certainly happen. And it's really unclear what will happen if the government does shut down, because it's never happened in Chicago before. And it's not really clear what would keep functioning, what would stop, would people get full back pay, when would they get that back pay? It's I joke sometimes that I enjoyed too much living in precedented times, and I would like to go
Same.
No, I like that line.
Yeah, I would like to go back to there, but we are not back there yet. And it's, I think, if we have the last scheduled city council meeting for the year right now is on December 23rd. That's the day before Christmas Eve. I think that if we do not have a budget by then, I think that the chances of a shutdown go up significantly. So we're going to have to wait and see.
I'm already knowing that little snowstorm around Thanksgiving in Chicago got some of y'all dreaming of a white Christmas, and luckily Paramount Theater in Aurora got you covered with their production of the beloved holiday musical. Them dance numbers, epic. The costumes I'm hearing are spectacular. And I know ever since I said Snowy White Christmas at the top, you've been singing the song in your head. It's all good. You can admit it. That's because this show is a family favorite that brings generations together year after year, where pageantry and spectacle come to life on the stage, running now through January 11th in downtown Aurora. Don't miss this iconic holiday production. Get your tickets today at ParamountAurora.com. December is in full swing at the House Museum. The River North Museum is decked out this holiday season with dazzling exhibits to keep you warm, including The Land of Oz Beyond the Page, featuring objects from or inspired by the 1939 film, including a replica of the Ruby Slippers, original costumes, scripts, production memos, and artworks that made the beloved books come to life. Maybe a field trip for the wicked lovers in your life. And to really light things up, Tiffany Lamps Beyond the Shade examines the materials Tiffany Studios used to create their astounding output of lighting designs in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Plus, Santa pulling up at the museum on Saturday, December 13th with the elves and professional photographer in tow. Or you could just chill out at a free silent book club on Wednesday, December 17th. Learn more about everything going down this December at DreeHouseMuseum.org. We are going to stay with City Council. Jamie, another piece of business up for consideration this week at City Hall was yet another renewed effort to create an amended teen curfew that broadens police's authority to impose a specific set of curfew rules anywhere in the city. Jamie, my first question is, why are we back here after multiple attempts to overhaul the city's curfews? And how is this latest version, if at all, different than previous versions Alderperson Brian Hopkins has brought forth?
Right. So there was a shooting after a mass teen takeover around the time of the tree lighting ceremony in late November. So Brian Hopkins, who had previously introduced this ordinance, the snap curfew, where a CPD officer could, enact a curfew at any time on a teenager who they deem as, troubling or troublesome. But folks shot that down. So he is back with this new proposal, which would allow police to impose a time and place curfew of up to 4 hours in public areas when large crowds are expected, with at least 12 hours notice before enforcement. Johnson has opposed previous versions of this curfew. He's skeptical. He seems skeptical of this one. Jason Irvin, who was initially a co-sponsor, withdrew support because he wanted additional safeguards and checks on the process. Again, we keep coming up with new and inventive ways of criminalizing teenagers and Black and brown teenagers specifically. And I'm not sure if this is going to pass. The answer here, as always, has been more third spaces, more opportunities for teens to stay active and do things. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes, but I don't see it going too far.
Yeah, we've talked about this a few times on the podcast. Last we had Corley J and Tonya Hill from the Tribe, who sat down with a bunch of young people to ask how they felt about the proposal when it was the snap curfew months ago, their desire for increased third spaces, the heartbreak they feel when any one of these incidents turns violent or dangerous. And after this most recent gathering of young people after the Millennium Park tree lighting, and you started to hear some of the reports that came out, the mayor's office and police knew about this. He made it clear that they provided hundreds more officers, a stronger detail in downtown. Let's be honest, the Millennium Park tree lighting already brings thousands of people, so the police presence was stronger. And so for people who say we need more police, right? Well, there were, and they already have the authority if large people gathering things seem to be getting out of hand. They already have the authority to disperse people, to potentially arrest people, to fine people, to, say people were causing a disturbance in there. Like, they already, underneath their broad authorities, they can disperse a mass gathering. How easy, how difficult, My question is, But to what effect, would this ultimately have for, the most tragic situations? And so what's likely to happen, like you said, more times than not, any gathering of young people,
it's going to be seen as a threat. Yep.
Exactly.
And again, so fun fact, Heather and I went to Kenwood together many years ago. And I tell the story all the time. Like, when I was 5 years old, I met Officer Friendly. When I was 14, I met Officer Please Disperse from this corner or we'll arrest you. And that was my reality as a kid at Kenwood. My son now attends Kenwood. He's a sophomore. Blessedly, we've had no major interactions with law enforcement. But again, just by nature of him being a young Black man, we're anticipating that, right? We've already had the talk about being respectful and all that. A lot of these kids, again, the same conversations we're having now, the same conversations we were having decades ago when we were kids. In any case, there are a lot more thirst spaces back in the 90s and 2000s than there are now. So what do we do? And again, it goes back to the violence interrupters that have been working on the ground for years. They know what works. I have a friend who runs a boxing and mental health program in South Shore every Saturday. These kids get together, they box, they learn how to, manage their aggression, and they learn how to talk it out after. More spaces like these are necessary. More things like these are necessary. We know what works. It's just a matter of people actually, being willing to do what works.
And seeing young people as partners in some of this, and not just as bodies to police and move around.
And I think also that the other part of this is that I if I'm not mistaken, the summer jobs budget is facing a bit of a cut, right?
Yes.
Like, we're also looking. So again, like, this all ties in together. You can't, again, take away opportunities and then expect kids to go, that doesn't work.
I'm gonna just sit at the crib and figure it out.
Right.
Yeah. Let's stay with policing. Earlier this week, Heather, Mayor Johnson questioned and criticized promoting practices within CPD, something that has been the subjects of various lawsuits over the decades. Heather, why now is the mayor being critical, especially after he himself ran on promoting more officers, detectives in CPD?
Well, I will pat myself on the back a little bit on this because I wrote a story about an officer, Brian Collins, who shot a kid in the back of his shoulder all the way back in 2017. The Civilian Office of Police Accountability ruled that shooting unjustified and urged that he be terminated. Former Superintendent David Brown objected to that determination, which sent the matter to the Chicago Police Board for reasons that I do not fully understand, and that city officials will not tell me. Those charges were dropped. And we learned about that a couple weeks ago. So I wrote a story about those charges being dropped and the fact that Officer Collins is now Sergeant Collins. He was promoted in June of 2025, ostensibly while these charges were still pending, and after he was named in 4 lawsuits that cost the city a grand total of $590,000. So, as you said, the way that the police department promotes officers has long been at issue. The current policy does not allow CPD officials to take into considerations officers' disciplinary histories when they decide whether to promote them to sergeant, detective, lieutenant. And the consent decree, my favorite topic to come on the show and talk about, requires that change. The consent decree will turn 7 in February. Those changes have not yet been made. And Mayor Johnson said this week that it was really time for those changes to be made, but it's complicated because whatever happens is sure to be opposed by the Fraternal Order of Police, the city's largest police union, who object to this change. And it's really sort of unclear whether anything can be done in the meantime, even as the mayor has sort of made increasing the ranks of detectives a priority. And the consent decree, in another provision, requires the city to have enough sergeants and lieutenants to supervise a smaller number of officers to make sure that those officers get more oversight and direction.
Who gets to make the final decision on whether or not a police officer who has been credibly determined to be at fault in not only a shooting, but multiple other cases of violent interaction or misconduct interactions with Chicagoans, are not only allowed to stay on the force, but also be promoted? I know there are some people saying, what's the point of a civilian officer police accountability? What's the point of these elected police commissions if the decision still at the end of the day lies with CPD?
So what we know is that it was the Department of Law that sort of prevented the Chicago Police Board from considering this request to fire this officer.
From even considering
it. Oh. So I don't know why. They are prohibited. They tell me from discussing individual cases because of confidentiality rules. But I think that those are good questions, Jacoby, and I think more people should be asking them, and I will continue to ask them as well.
Yeah, I mean, is the mayor offering anything beyond criticism? Because right now, and I don't want to link a whole bunch of different things together, but on the one hand, he's saying, we need to hold people accountable. We need to be investing in public safety, into youth. This is a story that directly involved a young person who was harmed at the hands of a Chicago police officer. And yet the Department of Law doesn't seem to be getting criticized in this process. And the mayor says he'll veto any budget that takes a slash at the Chicago police budget. So I guess what is the tightrope he's walking here?
It's a pretty slim thread, right? The heart of the consent decree is the 2017 finding by the Obama Department of Justice that police officers were not being adequately trained, supervised, and held accountable for misconduct. And, I spend a lot of my working hours trying to sort of figure out if that finding has changed, and if sort of that finding has been addressed. And I think this story is important because it raises real questions about what, if any, progress has really been made in the last 7 years.
Jamie, throughout this presidential term and the rise of this inhumane, violent, and unconstitutional immigration blitz on our city, the word propaganda has been used a lot to describe the efforts of the federal government and their physical and digital mouthpieces. But your colleagues at Block Club Chicago really drilled into this and laid out bare the various ways Chicago has been, in some, by all accounts, ground zero for this constant wave of narrative spinning bullshit. Can you talk to us about what your people learned?
So I know this is going to shock you guys, but as it turns out, agencies like ICE and Department of Homeland Security have been exaggerating about their actions. They've been using propaganda tactics to sort of shape public understanding of what they do, and exaggerating certain events to portray Chicago as this dangerous hellscape. Shocking. According to legal experts, these narratives often mislead the public and they suppress dissent and misrepresent the reality on the ground. The Department of Homeland Security in particular have been accused of reshaping violent encounters and triumphant dramatic stories. And, sort of staging, or sort of showing footage of a certain incident while sort of playing around with the facts of said incident. For example, they might post footage of them arresting someone on the streets, and they will say that person was a violent migrant who, snuck in illegally, and it turns out to be a single working mom who was granted asylum at the border. Things like that. So there have been many, many instances of these. More often than not, they've sometimes released, assertive statements about incidents before full facts were available, in an attempt to spin them. And really the whole thing sort of, it's about the spectacle, right? You don't really have to, be honest about it when you're just showing them the equivalent of a Michael Bay movie. And they've been able to get away with that since implementing Operation Midway Blitz.
One of the things I really appreciated about the investigation you all laid out is how simply people can see the lies for themselves. You all have the detention of Debbie Brockman, reporter and clergy attack, Silverio Villegas Gonzalez shot and killed, the shooting of Marimar Martinez when Bavino lied about the attack in Little Village and him sort of being accosted by protesters. You all have what they said, what went down, what we can prove, what the video show, what people on the ground saw. And I think that is, for as common sense as that is, that is the kind of work alongside the resource groups and the Migra watches that have popped up. That kind of honestly, both bravery and courage, but that kind of sort of stand fast commitment to the facts in the face of what is not only the propaganda, but the direct pressure on journalists from the Trump administration. They are openly not only shooting them with pepper balls, detaining them, villainize them, right?
Like, I mean, Bovino referred to Chicago to our outlet as Chicago Liars Club, which, of course, it's all part and parcel of the grand plan, which is, again, to flood the zone with as much BS as possible and to, keep people engaged in these BS culture wars so that when, we won't be paying attention to the fact that they're robbing us blind. So, like, I helped go through several hours of body cam footage from Border Patrol agents recently, and you're watching these folks, make these very violent, vicious arrests, and then talk amongst themselves as if it's just a regular day at the office. There's this one young woman that they detained who was arrested for she's being accused of interfering in an operation or something like that. And she had just tapped her keys against the glass, as the agents were trying to drive away, like she was one of the protesters there. Anyway, they detained her. They have her in the car. And they, one of the agents asked her, if she's a U.S. citizen. And she's like, yeah, what do you mean? And then he asked her, like, well, why do you care? And she's like, well, what? What do you mean? Why do I care? And I think it's just that entire exchange sort of like illustrates, just the breakdown between the two sides, right? Because one side's just like, well, you're good, so why does it matter? Why do you care about the humanity of others? And it's like, well, why don't you? But again, I think, what really encouraged me throughout this is seeing like everyday Chicagoans band together to fight back on this. And we're talking folks who are, diametrically opposed politically, but like in every way, sort of, coming together to fight this, we might not rock with each other, but you outsiders won't mess with us. And I think that's been like the general theme here.
Please head over to our show notes where you will find links to all of the stories we talked about in today's episode. Me and my siblings got my mom an Aura frame a couple years back, and I think it's one of the best gifts we have given her in recent years. It's a digital picture frame that sits right in her foyer when you walk in the front door. We're able to load it up with pictures of us, vacation pics, childhood pictures, and we still keep adding to it. My sister's wedding photos are going on there real soon. It's one way we can keep marking the special occasions and let moms know we're thinking of her. As you're hunting for gifts this season, an Aura frame is a thoughtful, personal gift that keeps on giving even after the holidays are over. Trust me, I love seeing it every time I go to visit. Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code CityCast at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code CityCast. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is brought to you by Mubi, a global streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema. On Mubi, stream beautiful hand-picked films anytime, anywhere. Right now, you can stream all the episodes of Hal and Harper, created by and starring Cooper Raiff, alongside Lily Reinhart and Mark Ruffalo. It's a funny, heartfelt, and sometimes heartbreaking look at the bond between siblings and how growing up together can shape who we become. Critics are calling it profoundly relatable and pitch pitch perfect. Hal and Harper is your next must watch. You can see it and so much more exclusively on Mubi, and the best part, you can try it free for 30 days. Just head to Mubi.com/CityCast25. That's MUBI.com/CityCast25. Every single time you visit CityCast Chicago, I am implicitly and explicitly promising to end that episode with some good news. You would think it was a contractual obligation at this point, but it's not. It's just something that brings me a little bit of joy, and I hope brightens up y'all days as well. And in classic Sharon fashion, Heather, your good news is in some ways some kind of a highlight for two different animal species who dominate the night in Chicago. Tell us what's going on with rats and cats.
Well, so
That's
Chicago.
That's a kind of a band name. Rats and Cats.
It is.
As I said it, I was like, Rats and Cats. Ooh.
You got to write that down. Trademark Jacoby Cochran, 2025.
No, I feel like that's very metal. Like it could be a really good.
It
metal
is.
Yeah. Well, so we all know that Chicago is one of the rattiest cities in the nation. We have a lot of rats, and the city and other groups are always trying to figure out ways to get rid of them, perhaps in humane and not so humane ways. And my colleague Patty Wetley wrote about a study from the Lincoln Park Zoo's Urban Wildlife Institute that found that our feral cats do not have a killer instinct when it comes to rats. So people who say, let's just increase the city's supply of feral cats and they will take care of the rats and it will all sort of balance out in the great circle of life is not so much, because these cats, they just want to hang out. They just want to have a good time. They're not looking to, go all murder bot on these rats. And honestly, I love them for that.
What's funny about this story is when I first saw the headline and I saw cats lack the killer instinct, I was like, okay, I get what you're saying here, but I was like, where's the good news in here? And I'm like, it seems by the end of this, we were just like, oh, these lazy, want to chill, want to smoke weed ass cats, versus being like, these cats is super evolved. They know that y'all are poisoning these rats.
Yes.
And they can smell it on the rat. They like, nah, bro, I'm not like these eagles out here. I'm not like these raptors out here who just looking for a quick meal. I could go kill me a pigeon with ease. I'll go catch me a piping plover like it's nothing. I don't need the rats.
No, we don't endorse that. I want to be clear.
I'm just saying the cats don't, they obviously discriminate against the rats. They don't discriminate against the bird population. So I'm just saying, it's like we saying that they not killers, and to me it sound like they strategic hitmen. Like they know that they poison, like they supply is poison. Why you gonna hit a supply that got battery acid in it? I don't know. I learned from a DMX movie that don't end well for you. And so I'm just saying, it sounds like these cats is super genius and we calling them, kind of soft. And I don't know if that's the case, seeing that cats are one of the number one natural killers in the ecosystem. And so I don't know. It just seemed like they know these rats is fat and poison, and they allergic to dying, and they want to stay alive. Shout out to Patty. JV, over to you. What is your good news for us today, and for a city that loves games?
Yes.
The city of the spades players. Another card game getting added to the list is something I think everybody loves to hear.
So I had the pleasure of writing the story about Rich Auntie Trivia, which celebrates the rich auntie and everyone. And for the three of the creators have Chicago ties, they're longtime residents. And this idea comes about while they're vacationing in a Malibu Airbnb, which, I mean, love it. Opulence. So basically the board game, again, celebrates, the bougie and sometimes mercurial matriarchal figures, that keep us going. Because again, you always have that one auntie who's like very mysterious. We don't know how she gets her money. We don't know how many like gentlemen or lady callers she has. Like she's got a lot going on, but she always gives.
She always got like, a nice bag, a vacation story,
right? And she's always got like the best advice, right? Like it's that kind of thing. So the group says they were inspired by the sort of the attack on Black history. So this is also a way of learning about Black historical figures in a very fun and engaging way. Also, there are cards that are supposed to spur, conversation among, like it's supposed to foster intergenerational conversations, which is also pretty cool. You'll expect questions like, how many Aunt Vivs were there in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and questions like how many people can legally fit on a yacht? Questions like those. So yes, pop culture and also maritime law. Like if you know these things, you're all set. I think the game is available for purchase now. They'll be filling orders until the 14th. The group says that they will do another limited drop sometime next year. But ideally, they want to start, off small with small retailers and, eventually work their way up to gaming conventions. And it's like a really, this game sounds like a really good time. So I told my friends, everybody's getting this game. Like Merry Christmas.
Stocking stuffers for sure.
Right, for sure.
This is perfect timing because we just did our local gift guide. We tried to keep it to like $10 or less, or around $10. And so this sounds like a perfect one of those gifts to add. Designed in Chicago, created in Chicago. And so let's try and flood the stockings across the city, y'all. I am going to end us out with a story I read from over at the Chicago Reader and the homie Leor Galil. He wrote about the Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Museum, which opened up back in 2021 thanks to hip hop pioneer Kingdom Rock, his partners Brian Gorman, and visual artist Darrell Artistic Roberts. It houses 2 floors of memorabilia and history on 45th and Indiana, and they announced, unfortunately, the owner of the building is selling it, and their last day is going to be Saturday, December 27th. However, it's not all sad news, because he says that despite the property owner retiring and them having to move, their team already has their eye on a new location in Bronzeville, 5,000 square feet. And they're really excited to kind of keep this story going.
Yeah, no, I interviewed them back in 23 and had a chance to see the space. And it really, I think the headline was, Chicago Hip Hop Museum is like a visit to grandma's if she was a B-girl, because it had that really homey feeling. And it was really cool to see, all the folks that you never think you'd see on the wall, Like Alderman Andre Vasquez used to be a battle rapper, and you can see him on their wall.
He don't let you forget it necessarily.
Yeah, no, this is true. This is true. Yeah, no. So it's like, but yeah, they also have old footage of him, from battle rap, from battle rap performances or whatever. All the photos, all the memorabilia, it's definitely worth taking a trip. And these guys are it's really cool to see how passionate they are about this, and how committed they are to making sure that Chicago isn't forgotten in the story of hip hop.
I want to give a huge thank you to our guest today from Block Club Chicago, Jamie Nesbitt Golden. Always a good time, my friend.
Scooty gang. Yep.
Scooter gang. I also want to give a huge thank you to WTTW's Heather Sharon. We always talking about some messed up things, but it's always a good time.
I'm happy to do it.
Before we get out of here, I just want to say thank you to every single person who has signed up this week to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor. That's Madigan B, Jordan O, Moore K, Serena D, Julia L, Kisha K, and Katie E. And the names are still rolling in. Y'all, today is the last day, the absolute last day to secure yourself a CityCast Chicago beanie. Kobe, you probably gonna come on Monday and say you got a couple more left that you can pass out, right? I don't know. I can't predict the future. So go ahead and lock in now. Your ad-free listening, your access to neighbors only events for 2026. We got some great ones planned. Regardless, the only way to get the invitation is to go to membership.citycast.fm and join up now. We really appreciate y'all. This thing only works if we can grow our membership and bring more and more listeners to this thing we love. And so there's an entire team behind this who is also grateful for your love and support. And that includes executive producer Simone Alicea, our producer Michelle Navarro, our Hey Chicago newsletter editor Emmy Mack, our social media manager Rick Homuth, our roving newsletter editor Selena C. Reynolds. The music we all love is from Sam Thousand, All the Kimonos, and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. Additional music this week from Sarah, the instrumentalist, courtesy of Epidemic Sound, and Cecilia Sanchietti, Up North, and AJ, courtesy of Triple Scoop. And my last thank you again, as I've said plenty of times this episode, is for you. The least you could do is be back here bright and early on Monday. I'll talk to you then. Peace.
I just want to take a moment and just really express my joy that you allow me to come onto this podcast and express just puppies and rainbows and just all wonderful things.
Yes.
You have been my go-to person for corruption trials, police violence, and spotting owls.
Put it on my tombstone. Put it on my tombstone.
I appreciate the balance you bring.